Stabilize, energize, contain, and then release. That's how Moe described what he was discussing in his mechanical motion of his swing. Today we're going to talk about what the heck did he mean.
So there's no better feeling knowing that when you wake up in the morning to go play golf, so that you're going to play well. There's no better feeling of hitting good golf shots down the fairway. Years ago, I was frustrated because I lost that. I was confused, I was frustrated, and then I met Moe Norman and learned the single plane swing. And so now I wake up every day and I know I'm going to hit it well, I know I'm going to play well, I know I'm going to have fun. So my mission today is to help as many people as possible wake up every day feeling good that they're going to go out there and play great because of the single plane swing.
So what I would discuss with Moe's swing, which you can see in many of the videos that I took with Moe as I practiced with him, was what was he talking about during his golf swing. And a lot of things that he says, he either didn't do, which I want to preface that. There was things that he spoke from his perspective, not camera perspective. We can discuss what the camera sees versus what you experience. There's a very different effect there, which was part of that conversation. But one of the things that he would do is he would use feelings: stabilize, contain, energize, contain, release. These are feelings that Moe would discuss about his golf swing, which they have a lot of merit, and there's a lot of value to those if you know exactly what they mean. Otherwise, they don't mean anything. And so one of the ways that Moe would tell me about his swing was he would do his best to describe what he was feeling, and then I would decipher the mechanics behind it. I was a translator, basically. In that discussion, I want to talk about what he meant by stabilize, energize, contain, and release. I love the words that he used because if you actually understand them, they have a lot of merit to them. The first one being stabilize. Now, what did stabilize really mean when it comes to the swing? Well, it's pretty easy, and I use that term a lot when I teach, is that you're basically in the backswing stabilizing the body. Think about it this way, and we'll go into stabilization a lot, because if you're not stable, which I call, there's a braking system going on in the swing. In other words, your body has to stop itself in order to produce movement. There has to be some parts that stop and some parts that move. Stabilization happens in both sides of the swing. But if you're not stable, you can't accelerate the body. Let's get very clear on that. If you're not stable, you can't accelerate the body. That's number one. Number two is, if you're not stable, you can't consistently repeat the same moment of contact with the ball, impact. So the moment of contact cannot be consistent if you're moving around. That only makes sense. If you have a lot of stability, you can deliver the club into impact in a very consistent way. Stabilization is really the foundation of consistency. And that's the problem with most golf swings, is there's a lot of motion being taught, a lot of positions being taught. I do that. I teach a lot of positions. But if all of that is not built around a platform of stability, then you're not able to really deliver the club effectively and consistently. So that's what we got to do. Number three, you got stabilize. Now you got energize. What does energize mean? Well, energize is pretty simple, because if I take a golf club and I go to the top of the backswing, if this is not in a position to produce speed, distance of the club head traveling, body position to accelerate, if you're not in a position to produce speed, then all this motion that you're making is kind of wasted. This was Moe's, hey, you got to set the club in a leverage position, then accelerate it. That's what energize meant. We're going to go through all these in just a minute. Contain. I love the one contain, because contain is where the club is contained its angle coming down. You're not casting the club early. You're not stopping the body too soon. You're containing this energy, and then you're going to release that energy, the final thing Moe said. So let's just go through each one of these elements in detail. Now, what I think I'm going to do in this video, I think I'm going to break this video up into two videos, because there's a lot to discuss here. In this first video, I just want to talk about how we stabilize and energize the body. And I'll talk both sides of it, but let's just talk about stabilization and energize the swing. The first thing is really this, is during the swing, when I go to the top of the backswing, I am bracing against the leg. I talk about this a lot, but this is stabilizing this part of my body. It's not, you notice that if I shift, I'm not stable. So I'm rotating into a stable leg. I'm stabilizing against the inside of that foot. I'm stabilizing this part of my body, and then I can basically get to the top in a very stable and set position. So that stabilization of moving into that right leg, inside this leg, inside of the foot, stabilizes this part of my body. Well, now, when I stabilize this, guess what? I can energize this. That's what Moe was talking about. But it's also about controlling that pelvis. A couple of videos I did a few weeks ago, I talked about controlling the pelvis. So this is about controlling the sacrum, this pelvis area, so that when you transition, this is under control. Now, I'm not saying you don't accelerate it, but you're controlling it with the legs and the foot position. So the control of the pelvis allows us to consistently keep that club leveraged and speed up our upper body. Stabilization to me is probably the most important function of the body, because without stability, you're not going to have the power that you want, you're not going to have the sequence that you want, you're not going to have the delivery that you want of the golf club. So let's take this one step further. Stabilization doesn't just happen in the backswing. There's the stabilization. It also happens in the downswing. I got to stabilize here, then to deliver. So we're stabilizing on both sides of the body. And you can see, go back through my channel, you can see I discussed this, how we use the feet and lower body quite a bit on the stabilization factor, because that's happening down here. But the upper body stabilizes as well. Because if you look at, if I'm taking a backswing and I'm stable here, now the second thing, as we talk about stabilizing the backswing, we also have talked about we're energizing the golf swing, because as we fold the arm up and the hands get into this leverage position, we're now energized because we're stable here. Our upper body's energized. Now when we transition, we have all this movement up in the upper body that we can now start producing the speed. So we're energized in our upper body. Well, why did that happen? It happened because I stabilized to do it. If I just moved everything like this, there's no containment of energy, which is what we're going to talk about next. I haven't energized the golf swing because I'm just kind of shifted back. We have to really, really stabilize lower body. And that pelvis control thing is a very important thing, where we're not shifting the pelvis around because we're not stable. And if we're unstable here, we're certainly going to be not stable here. And if we're not stable here, we can't energize the golf club. So Moe was on it. I mean, Moe had it figured out, and he had thought through it. He had thought through this stuff.
Look. My big toe never moves on my left foot.
What do you mean by that? Oh, outside of the left foot.
Never moves. The toe never moves.
How do you keep your? How do you keep? In other words, you don't slide on it. You're saying no slide.
Nope.
Just turn.
Yep.
So you never let your hips get in front of your knees, or what you're saying. You never let this happen. Yeah.
Oh.
That's interesting. Yeah. A lot of those guys slide out there. You know?
Oh, don't they? Watch this.
Yeah, that is pure. Very pure.
Everything is so connected.
Mm-hmm.
Every muscle is so what? Everything's so connected. Look. It's perfect. Look. So simple.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I got to stabilize the body. I got to energize the golf club. I got to contain this energy, and I have to release it. So it was such a great way of describing it if you were willing to think through it. It also discusses sequence, because you basically stabilize first before you energize. And then you contain that and then release it. So that is the sequence of the golf swing as well. So I love the way Moe described this stuff. Let me hit a couple shots here and discuss stabilization just for a minute, and how I'm energizing the club. So I'm stabilizing my body, obviously, but I'm pre-stabilizing it. Obviously, I'm not like this. I'm keeping my legs relatively straight. I'm pushing my butt back, getting those glutes back, so I can have some. That's a stabilizer in your body, by the way. These glute muscles are stabilizer. If you guys are weak back here, you're going to be weak up here. So stabilizing the back of your body, so I can work into this area right here of my body to then transition that and push it down. So here we go. So I'm going to stabilize the backswing, and then I'm going to energize the club because I'm leveraging it here. And the upper body, because I'm forward bent and side bent, it also gets stabilized because I can't rotate further, right? So all these things are happening as a stabilization so I can energize that backswing. Here we go. And to me, stabilization is primary. It's a primary thing. People make motion primary too much, and they're like, okay, you got to move like this, you got to move like this, and positions are also primary because they allow you to stabilize. So if you hit the proper position at address and you can stabilize, you can then energize the club. And so this is where you have to work on it in the proper order. Here we go. And I discussed that quite a bit, is that you have to work in the proper order. That's what I mean by swing order. The positions of the swing have to be in order. You have to stabilize in order. You have to energize the club, and then you can contain and release. And if you're doing that correctly, you can then sequence a swing and you can become really, really good at hitting a golf ball. And that's what I'm here to do to help. Thanks for joining me today. I'm gonna go in the next video, we're gonna talk about the rest of it. We're gonna talk a little more about stabilization and energize, but then we're gonna contain and release. And I'm gonna show you more of that in the next video. Thanks for joining me. Give me a bell icon, hit me a thumbs up. See you in the next video.